Okay, so yesterday was Tuesday, and you all know what that means by now, surely, don't you? It means, of course, that a new episode of Meghan Markle's trailblazing, mind-blowing, game-changing podcast is upon us.
Game changer.
Now, some of you understandably might think that I'd be getting bored at this point. What more could there possibly be to say about archetypes? Oh, ye of little faith, I've barely scratched the surface. As each week Meghan Markle strives and succeeds to outdo herself in cringeworthy vacuity.
There's a piece of art in my sitting room. It's not fancy. It's kind of this rectangle shape, almost plaque-like.
Sir, that's the plaque.
Yes.
And it just says a few words very simply across it. Humankind, be both. My dear friend Genevieve gave it to me a couple of years ago. When I walk past it, it just always makes me smile, of course, because I love her and our friendship, and it reminds me of her.
That's how people behave on screen, in a TV series or in a film. They walk past a prop and they have to express their emotions outwardly. No one in their right fucking mind walks past an inanimate object in their home every day and smiles at it.
Some real great memories.
We've been super close since we were about 17, but also because it's true. Human, kind.
We like to say people kind.
Be both.
And it got me thinking of other types of wordplay that resonate. And I specifically was thinking about something that I was told many years ago.
I'm probably nitpicking at this point, but why is it always many years ago with her? Why isn't it something she heard on the telly the other day?
You're not just a human being. You're a human, just being. Now, the woman who told me this was trying to remind me to just be easier on myself.
Meghan, if not for yourself, then for the sake of humanity, let us bear some of your cargo. Even the Roman soldiers had mercy enough to compel Simon of Cyrene to help Jesus, our Lord and Saviour, with his cross. I know I made the same joke in another video, but I mean, it really is funny to me how narcissists sort of think, well, I'm a bit too harsh on myself. They'll say this sort of thing like, I need to go easier on me, right? While simultaneously being the most shameless self-promoters in the world. It's just amazing, the lack of self-awareness.
Sort of in the same vein of saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yes, I think if there's one thing Meghan needs to do, it's not let perfect be the enemy of good, because there's no doubt that she's really, really good. But perfection is unattainable. She understands that. She's not perfect, because perfect doesn't exist. If it did, maybe she would be it. Like, if anyone understands perfection, it's probably going to be someone like Meghan. She would be one of Plato's philosopher kings, no doubt, queens. But living in our imperfect democracies, as things stand, the plebs don't have to bow to her superior intellect and esoteric knowledge yet. So technically, she's not perfect.
Well, this is just another version of that same ilk of advice. You're human, just being. And as I think about what we've covered throughout this podcast so far and the many ways my guests and I have reflected on the girls that we once were and the women that we've become, I wanted to revisit a large piece of my origin story.
The gloves are coming off. Women are fighting greasy pots and pans with ivory clear.
My old school. And explore if these labels and boxes are part of the self-identification for the young women there.
Thigh.
Or if they've given themselves the space to be a human being.
I'll bet you that Meghan Markle's favourite song is Human by English synth pop band the Human League. Human was the strongest and most memorable track from the Human League's 5th studio album, Crash. The band's collaboration with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis should have meant that the album was a commercial and critical success. But as the Philadelphia Inquirer's Ken Tucker pointed out at the time, most of the tracks were merely fitfully enjoyable, as the melodies were wispy and the vocals weak.
Do you have a dog? A little chow or something?
No, Helen.
Is that a raincoat?
Yes, it is.
Just in case anyone didn't get my reference there.
Okay. Ready, team? This is all very nice and new. Isn't it a pretty campus? So pretty. Oh my gosh, how funny. My locker was right over here.
Which one?
I was somewhere smack in the middle. I don't remember, because these are your lockers when you're in high school, and then the middle school lockers were up there.
See, this is the difference between me and other channels, right? Right here. Because everything Meghan says sounds like total and utter bullshit. And I'm guessing, right, she doesn't remember where the locker was, but she thinks she sounds more relatable if she says, my locker was right here. Then they're like, well, which one was it? And she goes, it's in the middle somewhere, right? But here's the problem. A lot of other YouTubers now, I think, have become investigative journalists more than anything else, and they get their hands on a copy of the blueprints from Immaculate Heart in Los Angeles and like, where she was standing when she made that video, there were no lockers in 1994. It's impossible, it's a lie. Meghan Markle's locker was actually right at the far end. I don't fucking care. I know that what she's saying sounds odd. That's it. We don't need to get the coordinates of her locker.
You've heard me talk about Immaculate Heart on this series before and the influence it's had on my life. And look, I was there from ages about 12 to 17, which are really formative years in your life. They certainly were for me. And let me just say, being back there, the energy, it was palpable.
I wonder if those radical feminist nuns still run it.
I was happy to be back there, and it was also really fun, especially when I made a surprise visit and I popped into some of the young ladies in volleyball practice.
Now, this is something I haven't really got into in my videos up to now, but it's something I've often thought, and it's that I think her production team often dubs in sounds or like little snippets of conversations that aren't actually in the original conversation or in the original podcast, but they dub it in later. And it turns out there are rumours suggesting that something along those lines is happening now. So like, even when I hear noises like a load of girls playing volleyball, I'm thinking, is that volleyball? I mean, there are undoubtedly moments when sounds are dubbed in, like when she was describing how you look for something on Google and there was a noise at the computer there. So unnecessary. Adds nothing to anything. So we're here in the stables with the horses. That's your cue, Harry. I love volleyball. I also love volleyball. We all love volleyball.
Or caught up with one of the young women in the hallway right in front of our lockers.
And my mom was like, are you gonna meet her? Are you gonna meet her? And I was like, I don't think so, Mom. Like, she has such a busy schedule. Like, I don't think
Not
so.
too busy for this.
And then you're like there, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, my mom, I gotta tell my mom.
Well,
that gasping noise she makes to affect laughter.
well,
Very similar to the noise my car makes when you open the boot.
well, if she didn't tell you yet, hi, Mom. Walking through those halls, it was just so many memories came flooding right back to me.
That's so gay.
Okay, so now we are going into one of my old classrooms. And, it's so great because as an adult, you come back into this environment. It feels so small, but when you're in high school, this campus was so big.
Yet more demonstrable lies from Meghan Markle. As you can see right here, the campus has not changed size in the 24 years since Meghan left Immaculate Heart. When will she cease?
This is a really big time for anyone in their life.
You're so young, you're so impressionable, and you also think you know everything when you're a teenager.
Yeah, thank God we all grow out of that phase, eh, Megan?
I visited the school to sit down in conversation with 3 amazing young women just on the cusp of adulthood. They had just graduated about a month or so prior. Abigail?
I'm a recent graduate from Immaculate Heart High School, and I'm going to be attending UCLA next year.
Diana?
I'm also a recent graduate from Immaculate Heart High School. I am planning to attend UC Santa Cruz.
And Grace?
I'm also a recent Immaculate Heart graduate. I'm planning to attend the Liberal Arts College Eugene Lang.
Are you really, going to be attending liberal arts college?
Congrats on graduating. So here's what I wanted to ask them. I wanted to fully understand.
Why does she narrate the conversations? Just have the conversation and film it or record it. Just good.
Do the stigmas and labels that I grew up with still hold the same weight? And keep in mind, at the time that I was sitting down with them earlier this summer, the show wasn't out yet. They didn't have a sense of what it was.
Yes, because you had the conversation with them like months ago, like last year. So they didn't have a sense of what Archetypes was about. I mean, if you went back today, I mean, everyone in the school would be like, woo, Archetypes! Such is the unbridled success of Archetypes.
So I was trying to set the table for them to understand, here's what I'm looking into, and I want to see if you see it through the same lens or if things have really changed.
Are we buying that this was recorded months ago and she didn't just go to the school and she's like, right, you all know Archetypes, right? Let's talk about my podcast.
I've been talking to a lot of women about the words, stereotypes, and labels they could put on us. I want to ask you guys, what are the labels that you think women get tagged with?
The B word.
The B word? Do you mean bitch?
Yeah.
It just really rubs me the wrong way when men use that word.
Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe that if a man is calling you a bitch, it's supposed to rub you the wrong way. Well, guess it depends somewhat on the context. But if it does, it probably should.
Whether like as a direct insult towards a woman or just like in passing, but it's like a derogatory word used against women. And
it's not like a derogatory word that's used against women. It is a derogatory word used against women.
And it's really frustrating to see how common it is
when it's used so casually.
Yes. And I think that's the problem because people just like shoot it at each other or they just say it in passing and it's crazy how many times I hear that word in a single day.
Wow.
Fascinating. That's the whole point of the word bitch. It doesn't really have a specific meaning. It's just an insult for a woman that you don't like. It's just this obsession with oppressors versus the oppressed, isn't it? I mean, I, as a man, could make a podcast about the word bastard. No one ever calls women bastard. I would never say, hey, you bastard, to a woman.
I'd love to get my hands on the bastard. Or bitch, might be a lady.
Another word we could talk about would be when a woman speaks up or uses her voice, they're labeled as bossy.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that word so much because...
Oh, she sounds like a right bossy boots, doesn't she? I wouldn't envy her husband, eh?
If a man says something or adds or pitches in an idea, it's like they're this great person, they're the leader, they know how to lead. Exactly.
Taking initiative.
Yeah. Exactly. But there's many women out there that don't want to be labeled as bossy, and so they don't speak up and they just sit down and take it all in, which I think should change. And that's why I bring it up.
Yeah.
Shut up, bitch! Oh my God!
Yeah, what a detriment. So when you guys hear the word bimbo, who do you think of or what do you think of?
Of being a girl, and I've already become a bimbo. With the queen herself, we're drinking martinis at 2:55 on a Monday on Sunset Boulevard, and then we're going makeup shopping. We love it. Cheers.
What a bizarre question. Who do you think of? Which famous people would we say are the archetype of a stupid blonde woman?
I think the only times that I've heard that in recent years is on TikTok from proclaimed bimbos.
Yeah, who says bimbo unironically now? Like, no one ever calls a woman a bimbo. That was like a bit that Joe Rogan had in the 90s about dating bimbos. No one, even like from my generation, would ever say bimbo unironically. You know, again, this isn't because Meghan is old. She's like, what, like 8 years older than me or something like that. So it's not her age. It's because she's wildly out of touch. She can't relate to people.
She's only ever heard the word on TikTok? I mean, talk about aging myself. But this idea of the bimbo, the dumb blonde, this was something that I grew up seeing all the time. And here we go. They hadn't. So I thought, maybe let's gear shift a bit. What are some other topics we've talked about throughout the season of this podcast? How about Singleton?
Yeah, another thing that for about 30 years, the mainstream media has been trying to convince women that they're better off alone and that you don't need a man and all of that kind of shite, you know, to make them dependent on the state. Being single is not a stigma anymore. There's loads of people my age who are just like, oh, I'm fine, I don't need kids. Well, you fucking do, all right? The episode on the Singleton was amazing. She said that women get called spinsters. My grandmother would have used that, maybe. She was born in 1927. Thornbacks. Yes, we often call women who are single thornbacks. We compare them to manta rays with a thorny underbelly.
And I walked these young women through my experience when I was at Immaculate Heart. And as I shared with you earlier, this assignment that I had to plan my own wedding.
Yeah, which we all thought was a bit odd, but Meghan seemed to take offence at the fact that a little girl who was the daughter of somebody on the show, who I think was actually a voice actor. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's neither here nor there. The little girl understood what a wedding was. She had literally an archetype in her head of what a wedding was. The man and woman come out of the church. The woman's wearing a white dress. The man's wearing a suit. And she thought that that was terrible. And it all goes back to what I say. You need archetypes. You need to understand them. You need the world to be binary as a child so that you can understand things, right? Otherwise, you're just like cattle being guided into an abattoir. You haven't got a fucking clue what's going on.
One of our assignments in our Religion 2 class, and I asked them their thoughts on that. Here's their response. I mean, can you imagine? Like, that to me was just what we did then. But now for your generation, you're thinking, what on earth?
That sounds insane.
Yeah. No,
like they're building a path for you.
Yeah.
Yes, it's almost as though thousands of years of tradition and culture have something to teach young children. Mental.
I think if we would have had those assignments now, we would have definitely spoken up about it.
Yeah.
No doubt in my head, someone would have said something, if not everyone.
A lot of my very close friends are set on being single, or they just don't want kids. And they just, like, I feel like they don't have that pressure on them to conform to that norm or that past norm of women getting married and having children.
Right. So the pressure's gone. So why don't you shut the fuck up? Quit your whining. I will say this, however, being set on being single, being set on not having kids. Wow, what great aspirations. Why don't you set your sights on having no job? This belief that any sense of pressure or indication of what you're supposed to do just because of biology, society, norms, tradition, anything that you're just expected to do. The pressure's gone right now. Essentially, it's gone as much as it ever could do in any society. But there's a sense that this is what is expected of you. That is oppressive. There's this belief that that's oppressive. It's not oppressive to believe that the norm is to grow up, get married and have kids. That is not oppressive. What would be oppressive is if you were forced to marry someone you didn't love and forced to have children with someone you didn't want to sleep with. That would be oppressive. A generation or 2 generations or possibly 3 generations now of people in the West that are just essentially grown up, spoilt little brats that got their own way a few times too often and now could accept no level of suffering. Can't even accept that other people think differently than them. I think it's great. You want to be single, right? But don't expect me to think it's great for kids to aspire to be single and childless when they're older. I don't think it's great. I think it's pretty pathetic. It's sad. It's nihilistic. It's misanthropic. But saying that other people thinking that is oppressive, it's not oppressive. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I think.
But they don't see a problem with that, which I think is great. And I think that's what's being taught to us in our classes, which is great as well, that we don't need somebody to support us, a man or a partner.
This is a Catholic all-girls school. Is it still an all-girls school? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't even know anymore. I don't care. We're doomed. We're absolutely doomed. That's what Catholics are being taught. Screw it all, you know, screw it. Like, share and subscribe if you have liked it. If you've enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.